It's my first time.
First time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I am watching Babylon 5 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Babylon 5 for the first time.
We're two veteran Star Trek podcasters that are watching Babylon 5 for the first time. We're watching it for Star Trek-like messages in the series and ultimately deciding if we should have watched this a little sooner.
That's right, Jeff. And while this is not a podcast about Star Trek, we are sure to pull in those references because that's what we do, and how could we not do that? So to help us with that, Jeff and I have come up with a game. This is a game, Jeff, more than anything. It's just for fun. But our rule is we get 3 Trek references each, and every time we use one, you will hear. And once you use 3, you're done for the episode, at least until we get to the end where we actually do the how does this compare to Star Trek part. But outside of that, that's all you get. So, Jeff, choose your references carefully, my friend.
Not going to lie, it's going to be tough in this one. And speaking of this one, today we're going to be discussing episode 4, Infection. So for those that it might have been a while since you've watched Babylon 5, or those who just have never watched it before or have not watched it at all and are just listening along with us, Brent, why don't you tell us about the episode?
It's the 2nd anniversary of Babylon 5 coming online, and there's a reporter lurking around that Sinclair has been avoiding, which of course means that it's the perfect time for Dr. Franklin to receive a surprise visit from sketchy old Professor Vance, and Professor Vance's even sketchier assistant Nelson, who's smuggling in some sort of high-tech artifacts from a dead world Ikara 7, and he's going to kill the customs officer in order to do it. Now, Dr. Franklin scans the tech and realizes that it's a new type of organic tech, which some of the other species have, but Earthlings don't. And it's pretty cool, but it's also pretty dangerous. Franklin and Vance are going to go off to argue about it. And meanwhile, Nelson's going to touch it, except the artifact is going to touch him back. And the artifact is clearly starting to take over Nelson. And he eventually attaches one of the artifacts to his chest, and a transformation begins to accelerate. And now he's zapping people with an energy ball, yelling, "Protect!" every time he does it. And one of those people is actually Dr. Franklin himself. The absurdity, and I have no better word for it than the absurdity, escalates until Nelson looks like a huge roly-poly unrolled up, until Dr. Franklin gives us the details. Basically, the Ikarans kept getting rolled by aliens until they developed organic weapons designed to take out anyone who wasn't a pure Ikaran. And it worked so well that when they were done eradicating the aliens, the tech turned on the Ikarans themselves because no one is truly pure anything. And that led to the destruction of their civilization, which then led to their world turning into a complete wasteland. So with this knowledge, Sinclair logics out that he can talk to it, or at least make it really, really mad, which he does. And in a very Picard-like conversation, that's not a reference that counts, Sinclair makes the artifact monster realize that it was their purity obsession that led to them destroying the world that they were sworn to protect. And in his grief over the truth, the artifact detaches itself from Nelson, saving the day. And with more denouement than a Lord of the Rings movie, Sinclair has his Dumbledore moment and finally gives that interview with the reporter.
That's the greatest recap I've ever heard. I mean, end episode. How are we get? That was great, Brent. Thanks.
There's only been 4 so far.
Hey,
Jeff.
You know what?
There's room to top it.
I don't know. He's set the bar pretty dang high.
Jeff, talk to us about this episode. We've both watched this now for the very first time. What are your, I guess, sort of opening avalanche of thoughts as you watch this episode, Infection?
My opening salvo. Well, first, Sinclair's a problem. We've talked about this a lot. He does everything. He's everywhere. And the episode literally starts out with the reporter, who's a total trope, by the way, who just come. Mm-hmm. The people have a right to know, Commander Sinclair. Oh, geez, come on. Just, it's awful. But she just calls him out like he's doing this. And Garibaldi agrees, right? She's like, he's doing everything. And he says, it's a real problem. And this culminates. They're going to go fight, big pill bug guy, you know, or whatever. Garibaldi's got a whole security team. They go down with their little weird guns that I'm not sure what they're shooting. That was little weird. But Sinclair literally walks down, grabs a weapon out of a trained security officer's hands, usurps Garibaldi's command, and sabotages and undercuts him in front of everybody. That's working. The fact the reporter brought it up makes me think this is going to be a thing in Babylon 5. And I hope it is, because that's a problem, man. Like, it's not good.
Well, it should be, especially considering the fact that Garibaldi addressed it with Sinclair later in one of the multiple denouements of the episode. He's like, dude, and we've said this since episode 1, Sinclair's in too much. He's doing too much. And I love the fact that the show's not blind to it. Like, we kind of held this criticism. We're like, what are they doing? This is just ridiculous. The fact that it's actually turning into a plot point actually makes me breathe a little easier about those first couple of episodes and even through this one, because you're right. He is a problem. And the good news is the show is addressing it. And I think it's going to become part of his story. And I'm sure we'll talk about the Wither 2s and Y4s of that a little bit later.
Because, this is a packed episode. Like, there's so much that they kind of cram in weird spots in this. Speaking of cramming in to weird spots, is it just me, or is Garibaldi becoming more and more of a skis like every episode?
Really? I thought he was coming less of a skis in this one.
Maybe I'm too focused on one scene. And it's that opening, right, with him and the reporter. And he's literally just like, hey, I want to make this clear. I really enjoy your broadcasts. Like, I mean, it's just like, wow, man, like, not even subtle. But in that scene, there's an alien there selling some stuff. Like, it looks like ginger root or something. It's either an aphrodisiac or something else.
Or floor wax.
Floor wax.
It was an aphrodisiac, or it was floor wax.
So he goes to buy it. and he says, if, what's he say? If that thing leaves a waxy buildup on anything, I'm going to be back. Brent, he was totally going to use it on. I mean, wow. They went for it. And, well, he went for it, I guess. Yeah.
It's funny. I don't, but the thing is he wasn't sitting there looking at the reporter lady being like, hey, you want to come back to my place and I'll show you my second favorite thing in the universe? Yeah. Like, okay. He wasn't doing that. That was creepy and skeezy. This time he was just like, hey, I kind of like you. This is really cool. And he was just throwing it out there and seeing if there was any kind of response.
I feel like
he wasn't being creepy about it. It didn't seem. He just was very direct. Like, hey, I like your reporting. And then listen, if he wants to hang out with ginger root or floor wax or whatever, and I'm not judging him, man.
It's not just your last best hope for peace. I mean, it's whatever floats your boat, man. Like,
last best hope for love, right? Man.
Let that freak flag fly.
There you go.
It's good, but I wonder too, like with that reporter, if this was the inspiration for that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode where they're trapped in like the Walmart with the reporter and Dennis is basically Garibaldi in the episode. Seeds getting planted. On Garibaldi, you've been talking a lot through the last couple episodes about like there's no security force on Babylon 5, except for like when they go fight the pill bug, they're down there. Literally, if there was a security force doing their job, this episode wouldn't have happened. Everything in this episode happened because a customs inspector was left alone with the person whose stuff was getting inspected. The whole scene, I'm just like, what's even happening here?
There's no armed guard in the warehouse.
Yeah, nothing.
There's nothing.
And then customs guy's an idiot. He's just like with the guy standing there. And this Nelson guy, I mean, he's not waiting until after the rain. He's ready to come at you right away. And he's just like behind his back. He's like, hey, if I didn't know better, you got a couple extra inches in here. You'd be smart. Do you want to die? Dude, there's no one here. You're alone in the warehouse. But literally, the fat Garibaldi.
I have a theory.
Okay, let me hear it.
Jeff. Yeah. He was setting him up for a bribe. He's like, it looks like this is about 4 inches deep, or you could be smuggling something. If you want to, I could overlook it. Like, that was my theory.
Okay.
That's why he did it. But outside of that, you're right. He's dumb.
It's dumb. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
I love Garibaldi's skill in his position as an individual. I think he's highly effective as an individual, but what do they have, like 4 people on a whole station of 250,000 people, like doing security? I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Let's just hope that it truly is something as inane in like production world. They just didn't have the budget for it and they couldn't put it out. Like, let's just hope it's really something more real world than in universe. Like they're there. We just can't see them on screen because we can't afford.
Yeah, but if they were,
let's hope that's
if they were there though, like the guy wouldn't have been able to attack him. You know,
that's true.
And I think it's a thing. Battlestar Galactica was really good at this. Like Battlestar Galactica felt huge and packed and uncomfortable.
It did.
But it had a massive budget, right? So, and I think other sci-fi series that didn't have as big of budgets or whatever, they had those sparse hallways, you know, or whatever. In this here, it's just like, they're not even pretending.
But the original series of Star Trek, I don't care. I always felt that the Enterprise felt packed.
Yeah.
That there was always people walking through the hallways. And I don't mean like on Next Generation where it was like one person passing by. It always felt like there were people in the hallways going back and forth across the Enterprise. So I agree it didn't feel like that in what we'll call the Berman era stuff. But the original series, I
agree.
I thought it felt pretty packed.
But I think like the rules were different. You know, like you could bring extras on, stuff like that. It wasn't as much of a budget hit. It's just like, hey, we got some costumes, throw this on, walk down the hallway. Don't make eye contact with Shatner, whatever you do.
Yeah. Or it literally could be like, hey, Grip Gaffer, go throw a shirt on and walk through the scene real quick. Like it could be that, like you didn't have to be an extra. It could just be, you're here, go do this real quick.
But you're right. It felt lived in and big, whereas all the Berman era stuff was like, hey, there's 1,100 people on the Enterprise and there's 2 in the hallway, or there's 8 people and 10 forward kind of a thing. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that whole thing was, I don't know, it's pretty bad. What I liked though in the security scene when they were having they're fighting the big monster guy, Tular, Nelson / Tular in there, but I kind of dug the makeup for the monster. Like it was pretty effective. Well, let me be clear. The makeup and the lighting together, they did a really good job, I thought, with the lighting to kind of hide the flaws in the makeup. So really you just saw mid-90s kind of corny, big armored monster. And I thought it was pretty effective for its time. That's my little asterisk there, for its time. But the last thing, big thing for me on this one, I don't have a sound for this one, but I got to celebrate because I think I've nailed something in this. Pro-Earth movements, hate groups,
there it is,
going after aliens.
There it is.
Yep.
Yes.
They outright said it. And watching this literally got like 3 hours ago, wow, this is so relevant to our world today. But yep. So here we go. Here we go with hate groups and the whole thing with pro-Earth.
You know, and I remember a couple weeks ago during, I think it was our first episode of Midnight on the Firing Line, we were talking, like they mentioned that this is what the Earth president won on the platform of. And we were like, I don't think we thought that it was necessarily a bad thing. We were just questioning, like, what does that mean? Yeah. And now it seems to understand that actually is not a good thing.
Exactly.
And that's unfortunate. And so this president has won on a platform of preserving Earth cultures. And
yeah. And they're doing it violently. And they're at the end of the episode or near the end of the episode, when they come and they seize this organic tech, these biological weapons or whatever, like Ivanova's awesome. And I'm holding on to some of that stuff here for the closing on it, but where she's just like, oh, here we go. I'm going to go get a drink with these aliens over here. Like, and I love that too, because I feel like she identifies with the aliens because I got an ideological level, which I just think, I don't know. Right. Yeah, I thought it was really great how she played that whole thing, but also just how subtle that was at the end. It wasn't subtle, but it was just at the end. They're just like, hey, we're taking these weapons. Also, like, we're totally going to kill aliens with them. Whoa.
And it's like, did you not see
what it just did here on the station
over here? Please.
Like, yeah, like there's the one scene, like I think it was like the second group of people that he killed, like, it was like nuclear Armageddon. They were piles of dust and their shadows were left on the wall. It's like, yeah, like he did that when he was still growing in power. And now you want to like put that into mass production somehow. Oof. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll tell you my opening experience with this show.
All right.
This is how I was going to give it to you. And I will stand by this. This show was hot, stinking, messy, filthy, garbage.
Tell me how you really feel.
It was bad. This made Soul Hunter look like Oscar-worthy type filmmaking. It was the casting, the directing, the acting, the scripting. and I'm going to disagree with you about the makeup. This whole pill bug guy looked like Babylon 5 was trying to go horror movie / Predator / something. It was bad. I'm with you on the whole lighting, kind of covered some stuff up, but still, it was bad. And then we hit the 27-minute mark. And this does not count as a reference, but this show got Star Trek real quick. I mean, real quick. There's a solution, and the solution is to talk about it.
Right?
You find out that you can reason with it, that there's a humanity. You find the humanity and you appeal to the humanity, and you solve your problem that way, not with violence and not with destruction. And now it becomes a pretty good show. And as I even said in the recap, there's even this whole piece where it kind of turns into, at some point, Dumbledore sitting on Harry's bed at the end of a Harry Potter novel, explaining the moral and what he should have learned over the whole, the time may come where you have to choose what is good and what is easy.
Yep.
It's kind of that talk that's going on. And then there's it turned into, honestly, a really good episode for the last
half
20 minutes. Yeah. But that first 27 minutes, Jeff, like, I'm sitting here to go to your point, this lady's walking down the corridor with Garibaldi, and I'm like, wait, is this the telepath? Who is she? What's going on with her? Oh no, she's a journalist. Okay. And the doctor dude, I don't even remember his name. He's back now all of a sudden. And he's got a friend who just comes in. Should we have known who this guy is? What's going on here? Wait, who are these guys in the cargo bay? Who's this guy doing stuff? Who's this other guy? Wait, did he just kill that? What is going on? I don't know anything.
I need an adult. I need an adult. What's happening?
I need somebody to tell me what's going on. And it's like, and then you get like living machines. Wait, did we go to Battlestar Galactica? Is this Cylons now in here? And then he gets the little shock from the box where he goes, I'm going to touch it. And it, it shocks him. And you're like, oh, well, there's a sci-fi trope that I've seen in every single sci-fi show ever, because now he's going to get infected. And oh yeah, look, it's on the back of his hand and it's spreading. He got infected. I believe I've seen that. I can't say because you're going to buzz me.
You've seen it 10,000 times. In fact, what you saw,
he's devolving and transforming. Like, okay, I've done it.
I got to say there, two things really quick. One, thank God this wasn't what we thought it was going to be. And when he started, like, he got shocked and it showed like his skin going and his face was, I'm like, oh God, here we go. It's just going to be this. And then it took a turn. That was good. But I did I don't say I liked. I thought it was notable where, like, so he gets the thing and then he grabs the big pill bug that turns into a face hugger, total face hugger out of Alien. Nope, going for your chest. Oh, okay. Yep. Also, apparently not permanent, because you can just take it off whenever. That was a weird resolution to that whole thing.
Yeah. And it left like a little hole like right here.
Although it took 4 seconds for him to just turn into like, clean naked guy all of a sudden. Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there. Our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community. And you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there.
Well, it's the beast at the end when the rose petal and Belle, cried on him, and all of a sudden he comes back. It's like, oh, look,
just like that. Yeah,
there you go. There you go. So yeah, ultimately, Jeff, that's where I came down to it. Like the first 27 minutes, I was rolling my eyes. Like, I honestly didn't even want to finish the episode. And I think I texted, like, we were texting about recording this episode. I was like, this one ain't gonna take very long, man. This is a hot piece of garbage. There's nothing to this. And then it turned on a dime, and I just went, oh, and it was like every other line. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh oh, look at that. Oh, that's amazing. You know, and I was like, oh, he's still going to kill him. Oh, no, he's not going to kill him. Oh, look, there he is. He's talking to him now. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that changes things.
It's like two totally different episodes. I mean, really. And I think let's talk about the casting, because I mean, just Ducky from NCIS coming in and being like badass, hardcore university professor. I mean, immediately. So I love Dr. Franklin. I think he's great. I love his attitude. I love his swagger. But this guy comes in and he's just like big head, nerdy white dude trying to act like, look how badass I am. Yes, back at university. Stop. Like, I'm already out. I got
to tell you, in zero way, shape, or form did I buy that this guy was a university professor of Dr. Franklin when he was a student.
Dr. Franklin's 6 years older than this guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so brilliant on top of it. It's just like, really?
Yeah. This guy was one of my best students ever in the history of students. And I'm like, no, you guys were classmates at best.
At best. Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked in there, though, I think Franklin just asked a lot of really great challenging questions and gave us a lot of the premise. One of this and some of the takeaways we got around capitalism, around self-discovery, things like that. But one thing that I thought was cool is they talked about the concept of a living ship, right? You know, and that can and weapons that can generate their own power, that apparently the Vorlon, remember them? Remember the Vorlon? They mentioned them, I don't know, like 6 episodes ago.
Yeah, we're 5 episodes into the entire run, and that's including the pilot. And we've only seen them twice.
And for like a grand total of like 4 minutes in that whole time. So yeah, there's some race called the Vorlon that apparently have this biological technology in there. And then they're guessing the Minbari.
And possibly the Minbari. Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing. That's I think that's the thing I really like is in video games, Mass Effect, even other sci-fi franchises. I'm dancing around it there because I want to hold on to them. But all the different races are generally like on a level technologically, you know, plus or minus a little or to the side. There are dramatic differences in the technology. And I like that. Like that's real. That's how it's going to be in there. This really just kind of punctuated that for me.
And honestly, that is more, I think, representative of what we have here on Earth today with our various nation states around the world. Like, we have different countries that are on very different technological levels. There are some that are, hey, we're all kind of on this level. But the way that usually sci-fi shows is like, okay, everybody's either on nuclear power or your village tribes out in the outback somewhere.
And no in between.
Like, there's very few in between. Or you're like 1800s, whatever, turn of the century. Like, sometimes you get that. But like, you're not, it's not like, hey, we're all living in this current world. It's just this particular group has this whole technology that we can't even fathom just yet. And my God, if we could get our hands on that technology, like, it's not some prideful, like, oh, we can't share technology with those who are lesser developed than us. It's no, we're not sharing technology because that gives us a technical advantage. A strategic advantage over you in case something goes down.
When this Babylon 5 experiment ends, right? Because Lloyd's of London put the odds at 500 to 1. It wouldn't last a year. You know, I actually really liked that, how the reporter, like the way they used her to come in and be like, this was supposed to completely fail. And I have questions. Right. I want to know why it hasn't failed in there. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, like we've talked about so many times already on these couple episodes that we've had, everybody's ready for the next big war. And so they're trying to hold on to those different pieces. But I think there's also this huge underpinning of like the evils of capitalism in there that Dr. Franklin and Ducky Vance really play out in the whole thing, where he's just like, you know, I could get millions for this. And he's like, you risk 250,000 people to test a theory so you could increase your profit margins? And Vance is like, well, yeah, I totally did. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what's that company called? That was it, Interplanetary Expeditions, I think, that hired him. Yeah. I wonder if they're like he said it was a front. So I don't know if that's just like a throwaway, like, oh yeah, there's or whatever, or if they're going to become, that's like a thing. And they're out there stealing. What did Franklin say? Grave robbing. They're out there grave robbing.
Yeah. I didn't necessarily see it as a commentary on capitalism, but as much as like, we saw this a lot with the show 24. If you ever watch 24, like that show always there's some big terrorist threat and it's going to be, some guy from a Muslim country because, all terrorists are Muslims. Okay, wait, we got 3 seasons in and it can't be a Muslim again because that's just racist. So now we're going to make the guy Russian or whatever. But usually by like episode 16 or 18, what you realized is those guys weren't the real enemy anyway. The real guy was some rich white guy out there somewhere, some power behind it. And that's what this felt like to me. Like it felt very tropey, which, I mean, I guess you tie it to capitalism. I just called it greed.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know that that's capitalism as much as it is just greed, although maybe they're one and the same. I don't know. I don't get into economics too much, to be honest with you, but it just I kind of rolled my eyes at it. I'm sure it was much better in 1994 when it hadn't been so overdone. But today I was just like, of course, that's the real reason that's going on here. And that's really what's happening. But I mean, okay, can we talk about Vance for a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I can't figure this guy out. He comes in and he's throwing himself around like he's running the whole station, the whole medical bay. It's like, hey, you're my favorite student, and I'm just going to walk into your place and sit at your desk and kick my feet up on your desk. Okay. Like, that's the attitude he has going around. I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Yeah. The greatest adventure of your life. But I'm not going to tell you about it now. I'll tell you about it later. And he goes through and he's like, oh yeah, we've got all the paperwork and my dude's got it. And we had it. He's lying through his teeth. He knows that this hasn't passed quarantine in any situation. And then when everything goes to crap, he's like, I can't believe that this happened.
He said it. He said everything was going to be fine.
He said it. Well, if I'm really the one responsible for bringing this here, then surely I want to be the one who helps you, and I'm like, really? Does he really? Or is he just kind of putting that on, trying to sound good? And then he kind of gets to the end and you're like, yeah, listen, I just did this for the money. I did it for the Benjamins. Yo, let's go. And I'm like, I don't, and him and Franklin kind of have it out, but remember a couple weeks ago, we were talking about what happens if Jakar and Londo got into a fight.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Apply that conversation to Franklin and Vance. Franklin would drop Vance in a heartbeat.
Well, and he did. I mean, verbally. Right. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it happened. I think so in my real life world, without given too much, I work a lot in criminal records. I understand criminal records very well and the impacts that has on recidivism and all that kind of stuff. What Vance does here actually is what I wish so many other criminals would actually do. And that's like, so he had his plan. He had everything. He tried, I would tell this person this version of the story, this person this version. But as soon as he was called on it, he was just like, okay, like, you got me. Here's my Bond villain speech, about I did it for the money. Security shows up. He doesn't argue. He just walks out with them. He's like, you got me. You win. And I said, dude, if more people could just do that, that's great. Cool. You're motivated by millions. I get it. You're an underpaid university professor. You made that abundantly clear how just broke you are. Cool. You were motivated, but you got caught. And I don't know. I guess what I'm kind of saying in the end, I kind of respect that he just took his lump at the end of the whole thing.
I was watching a YouTube video earlier today with my kid. It was a compilation of people that take off running on professional sports fields, and we're watching the cops like run these people down and tackle them. And like, there was a couple of people that like, eventually they just stopped in the middle of the field and just let the guys come get them. And like, they just walked off like arm in arm, like occasionally somebody be really pissed. They'd put some guy in some sort of like Half Nelson. I'm like, that's unnecessary, man. He had stopped. You just walk away.
Yeah.
But like one guy, like he saw him put his arm around the dude. He's like, come on, let's go.
Like,
you're not getting away from me now. He's like, you're fine. Yeah. Let's go. I mean,
it's human. It's human nature. Try to get away. Sure. Do it. I get it. That's all right. But when you're caught, you're caught, and he did. And I think I agree. I don't know that it's a capitalism thing. It's a money thing. They just threw out a lot of the terms like profit margin and stuff like that. And I think that nowadays,
I mean, greed, it certainly is greed. And I'm happy to apply that word to it. And, motivated by, that's a lot of money. I mean, somebody flashes millions in front of you. You're like, ah. And he's like, I thought I could control it. I didn't think it'd go that far. I thought I'd control it. And you're like, you're still responsible. Say that to all the dead people now and their families.
All the damage in the station. And I think too, okay, here's my little prediction for the future, because we've been led to believe that there's not wasted airtime in this, in this series. We learned that the reason it melded with Nelson was because he was willing to kill. That's why it didn't meld with Vance or anybody else. So this is going to become a thing down the line. The Earth forces are going to develop this technology, and there's going to be something tied to, I don't know what it will look like, but someone having that drive, that ability to kill somebody. Could you do that? Like, are you, I'm going to go deep here. Yeah. Could you kill somebody?
Am I a killer?
Are you going to be Tular?
That, it's real easy to think of what you would do sitting in a chair behind a microphone in my nice air conditioned office here in my home. No, I don't think I would kill somebody. If the chips were down, could it happen? Maybe. I know my own depravity. I know the level to which I can sin. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wouldn't shock me if something happened, but I mean, I got to tell you, like if, I got a daughter, you do too. If somebody ever did something to my daughter, I'd the only thing that would stop me is the thought that I'd still have to be around for my son and my wife. Like, I can't go do something that takes me away from them too, but yeah, I would lose my stuff if somebody did something and I wouldn't care. So I could get there for sure. Would I be that just in general? Probably not. I'm not that cold.
I wasn't asking to be like, Brent, but I was doing it because I think,
Brent, are you
right?
A killer?
You answered the way I hoped it, which is good. Because if you went a different,
I value life for the sake of life.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Because I think if you went a different direction with that, we would have, there'd be a big edit in this one. But, but honestly, I think that's the thing is I think that we're all capable of killing under the right conditions. I think Vance would have been capable of killing in the right conditions, but Nelson was a killer. He killed for the purpose of smuggling some stuff in. So that's where I think that's the seed that I'm hoping turns into something down the line, storyline wise here.
So, I mean, apply that to the real world, right? Like there are certainly people, let's look at the case of Ahmaud Arbery just a few years ago, who frankly are looking for a reason to go shoot somebody. It's horrible, but they're actually just, they're begging for a reason to do it. And yeah, those would be the people that this thing, I mean, you know what this is? It's the Venom costume from Spider-Man.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
Can we get to the meat of this? Because that's really, I think where the conversation lies. So he turns into a pill bug, a roly-poly, as they say where I'm from. And he's going around and he's, nothing can stop him and all this stuff. And he's protect. And Dr. Franklin comes in and says, stop, guys. It's a person and it's got a brain inside of it. And it's the artifact taking over his body. Okay. Super tropey sci-fi stuff to this point. But at that point, Sinclair goes, so we can talk to it? We can do that? Well, let's go do that. And he goes in and, does this count? Yeah, this is going to count. I mean, it's the Picard maneuver, right? It's Kirk. Like this is what a Starfleet captain does. Like, we're going to go talk to you. Now, I'm also going to shoot you at the same time, Sinclair says. I'm going to blow you out of an airlock, but I'm going to talk to you.
Well, I feel like the blowing out of the airlock was plan B.
Sure.
He needed more help. So that's what he said. But, and I appreciate this, and I'm going to give myself one on this because it's not fair to ride yours on it. Cause I'm going to go deep. You mentioned in the opening how he did the Picard on this and went and talked on it. I kept waiting for him to take the Kirk on. And the Kirk would have been, right? Impure. You're here to fight and kill the impure. And Tular's like, impure. Look at yourself, Tular. Look at your own makeup. You're impure. Yeah. Right. And do the whole like nomad, out computer the computer. But he didn't. And I think for the first time in all these episodes, Sinclair, it's like, oh my God, there's something to this guy. I thought the acting and the direction leading up to this were middle school Bush League horrible when he's taunting Tular and oh my God, I hope he felt like a jerk doing that because it was terrible. But the content was awesome where he's taunting, getting him going. And then he's just like, you're wrong, man. You're wrong. And then he saw it. Like, I don't know. It was so good.
Well, I mean, it turned into the whole, the Harry Potter thing. And I don't want to get into the whole author of Harry Potter, but the content of Harry Potter, which is one of the big pieces there is the whole pure blood, purebred thing. And here they call it out, the Aryan thing from World War II with the Germans, and nobody's really that. Like, I mean, that's exactly, I think, the metaphor that the wizarding community was using in Harry Potter. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't read it. The books are 25 years old now. But you know, that whole idea that nobody's really pure, because even once you get past the quote unquote aliens, well, then you have the sick, you have the infirm, you have people with mutated genes. I mean, we have this on Earth right now, genes that are still continuing to mutate and change. And there's nobody who's truly whatever thing they are. And he turns on them. And again, this kind of goes back to, we've seen this in sci-fi lots of times. I mean, it's a little bit Wall-E, right? Like you know what I mean? Like you kind of destroy yourselves because of whatever, that the robots take over and all that, you know, that whole idea, like, the British aristocracy and European royal, you know, we got to keep the bloodlines pure, right? Like that's another one. As if those bloodlines sure have some sort of intrinsic value. And it's getting really close to it's not who you're born from, but your own choices that determine who you are. Like, you're getting that. There's like, it was so good. And they get to a point where they say, your world is a desert, right? Like he says, dig into the memories of the being that you're in right now. The world is a desert. And he's like, oh, and the idea that, like, if we were to take out all of the variations, that leads you to a desert.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, think of the tapestry that makes up humanity, right? I'm kind of getting, I think, a little bit into what we would normally do at the end, but this is the middle of the show. Like, think of that tapestry that makes up different people, you know, and they said in the, you know, whether you're tall, small, skinny, fat, white, black, whatever skin color you are, you know, whoever you choose to love or wherever you identify, like all of these things, even down to your religions and, you know, what you believe here and what you believe there, like go back to our conversation a couple episodes ago about cultures and the various cultures we have, like all of these things that make up this tapestry. If you get rid of all of that and you keep it quote unquote pure, well, guess what happens? You die and it becomes a desert. Like, there was something so profoundly, like, beautiful in that like I kind of fell in love with an episode that the first 27 minutes I said were hot garbage.
Right.
And I stand by it. The first 27 minutes were horrible, but the last 20 minutes of this episode were so good. You know, I mean, season 1 sci-fi for sure, but so good with what they were going with.
You know, there's a YouTube video that I've always appreciated because it demonstrates the power of diversity, right? And I think, to your metaphor of the desert, it's a person they're standing between two pianos. One piano is tuned regularly, you know, just the normal keys, normal notes, all the tones. The other one is all tuned to C. So every single key on the piano is C in the same octave. And so they play a piece on the regular piano, and it's, you know, it's beautiful and it's amazing and it's complex. They go play the exact same piece on the other piano, and it's just the same note. It's just this da 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 da. You know, it sounds like a SOS thing or whatever. And that's what purity is in there. And we don't want purity. And I think, well, I mean, heck, do you just want to dive in to kind of our closing thoughts? I think we're in there kind of wrapping stuff up into it.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, because I think there's so much that happens in here, and it weaves together so well. We've had, and you've been really on this point through the episodes of how the A and B stories haven't woven together in any way. They've been kind of, you know, plug and play and whatever. This time, the reporter was kind of the B story that was whatever, but at the end,
didn't make any sense to have her. I'm sorry. Let's call that out. She made no sense
until the end
to have it in this episode. Yeah. Because it gave him an opportunity to have this conversation, but like she made, and I'm to go back to what you said earlier. The people have a right to know. And I'm like, no,
exactly.
They don't.
You're in the command center of a massive.
You're in the middle of this. You do not have the right to know what's going on right now. Maybe later, if we choose to let you know, this could be classified stuff. You don't have that right to know. People, you do not have the right to know every single little thing that happens out there. Folks, we don't. It's not our right. It's a privilege.
You don't want it. You don't want to know everything.
Right.
That's just, it's not good. But what she brings, though, is that conversation with Sinclair at the end. And so what you have are these these multiple things that are happening where you've got the conversation around racial purity. You've got the discussion of the pro-Earth movements that are moving towards that. Not necessarily purity, but definite racism and classism around Earth first, human first. And then you have Sinclair wrapping the whole thing up together and basically saying that if we don't expand, if we don't become a member of this galactic community out there, we're all going to die, and it's all going to be for nothing. And I thought in that final scene, everything in this episode for the last 20 minutes of it wrapped together, I mean, perfectly. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. Yeah, so good.
The way he started naming bits of Earth culture from the past, most of the things we are familiar with today. And they sprinkled in a few things that are like, wait, what? And you're like, okay, maybe that's future stuff, but to say all of that stuff never mattered. If we just die,
means nothing.
If you leave nothing behind because you just go, if you don't go to the stars. Now, what does that look like in the real world? I mean, will Earth's sun eventually grow cold and the Earth die? Scientists say yes. Frankly, it is so far in the future. I can't even put my mind to that.
Not at all.
Can we ever actually go to the star and join some intergalactic community that's happening out there? I don't know. Like in real life, can we really ever do that? I don't know. Maybe we are the only thing in the universe. I don't know.
You got to think. I mean, look at it.
I hope not.
I know, right? I think it'd be ridiculous if we were. But I think at a micro level, I mean, just think back to what we know of the cradle of civilization, right? Mesopotamia and the Euphrates, right? Which we've got the Euphrates sector with Centauri and Narn a couple episodes ago, looking at stuff. But imagine if we just stayed there. If no one ever walked across the river, if no one ever climbed a mountain in there, I mean, I don't know what would have happened to us, but we certainly wouldn't have, I was going to say, the world we have now, and that might not be a bad thing necessarily. But honestly, we have a lot of incredible stuff in this world. The fact that you and I right now are 3,000 miles apart having a conversation about Babylon 5, a show that aired 30 years ago, and we're going to have a whole bunch of people listening to our conversation, that's because some dude in Mesopotamia and their family decided to cross the river. Sinclair is arguing for not anything massive or wild. He just wants to cross the Euphrates of space.
Right. So what do you do when you juxtapose that to the conversation that Sinclair had with Garibaldi just a few minutes earlier of like, hey, you went out to this war. You knew nothing else. Honestly, it sounds like he's got some survivor's guilt. And he's like, you're doing anything you can to go out in a blaze of glory. Like it's like you have a death wish. You're trying to go out in this blaze of glory because you don't know how to live otherwise. And Sinclair goes, you're not wrong. And you juxtapose that to this conversation he has with the reporter at the end of, look, if we don't preserve it, if we don't get out there, if we don't move forward, then it was all for nothing. How do those two come together? Because those are two such different ideas from the same character in the same episode.
I don't think it's that. I mean, the ideas are wildly apart, but I don't think it's that far of a leap. Veterans of war, right? So I'm a veteran. I served in Clinton's Navy. Our enemy was dirt. We weren't at war when I was in there. So proud of the opportunity to serve. Wartime's a whole different thing, and war changes you. And I know people, I've worked with people where it's just the constant trauma that you're living under and the constant anxiety and the survival, just day to day, minute to minute, not knowing what's going to happen. I interviewed a guy for a job once, a management position in an office. And one of my questions was about how do you manage conflicting priorities with deadlines that are aggressive and, oh, look how important my big office job is kind of thing. And he looked at me and he said, well, I was a lieutenant in the U.S. Marine Corps, and I was in Afghanistan. I had 15 people under me, and I had to move my team from this side of the street to the other side of the street without stepping on an IED, getting shot, or injuring any children or families between here and there. As we were crossing, bullets were flying at. He just told this story as the whole time he's talking. I'm just like, wow, I'm a jerk for even asking that question. I still work with that guy, and he's great, and he does amazing things. But there are times where he has to kind of catch himself and just be like, sorry, I was in a different place. Take that to what we know of the line where Sinclair blacked out, right? And has a whole and all of the massive ramifications out of that. Yeah, dude's got some trauma that he's still got to work through, and so he can see that. But I think also he talks about he's an opinionated guy, right? The last time he talked to the press, they literally sent him to the other side of the galaxy to shut him up. He could be a philosophical guy, he could be a dreamer, but at the same time, he's literally stared death in the face. And to our earlier conversation about killing, he's killed who knows how many beings that he's killed. Yeah,
sure.
So I get it.
He doesn't even know how many people he's killed. You know, Jeffy, talking about this, we were talking not too long ago about the idea that we don't really know our captain. Mm-hmm. We still haven't had a Sinclair-centric episode. And I don't know that Babylon 5 will do character-centric episodes. You know who wasn't in this episode? Londo, right, and Jakar and Delenn and Kosh. Like none of them were even anywhere near this.
Barely
episode.
Mentioned.
Right. And maybe that's for budgetary reasons, or I don't know. I feel like if you get your name in the opening credits, you get paid for an episode.
That's
regardless.
what I thought. Yeah.
You know, it's why Quark pops up in a handful of episodes that he has no business being in. It's just put him in makeup. He's got to do it for something.
He's getting paid. We're going to get something out of it.
Exactly. But we really we're catching these little bits of Sinclair. At this point, 4 episodes in, I want to know my captain better, or commander. I'm sorry, he's a commander. I want to know the commander better. Like there's these little bits. We're exploring it. We're uncovering a little bit. I still don't feel like I know who he is. My heart is desiring to know this guy. Like I want to know not just what his deal is, but who he is as a person. And I feel like all we've gotten is just this mask that he's put up. And it's time to get behind that mask.
We know Ivanova better than we know Sinclair. She was in this episode for about 45 seconds, and her personality, who she was, shone through.
Her line to the reporter was like, "You're too young for this pain."
I am like every episode. I'm just like, she's awesome. I'm really digging her. But
yeah, I do like her as a character. I really.
But I think as we look at this, right, and look at how Star Trek it is, I can't help but compare this directly, like as a riff on the Next Generation episode, The Hunted, right? So you got Roga Danar and the super soldiers that were done. In that one, it was a different take where the super soldiers were uprising for political reasons, right? They didn't like how they were treated. They didn't like what they were forced to do. They still had enough agency to kind of stand up and do things. And the end of that episode was pretty powerful, right? Where Picard's like, yeah, not my problem, dude. Handle it. And Enterprise took off. This one focused more on the programming, and as I'm talking about this, like that programming really becomes a piece. These soldiers, Tular or whatever, were programmed to essentially be murdering racists to the point that they murdered their creators and stuff. So yeah, I really saw this as a riff on a pretty great, fun Star Trek episode in there. And I think as we've been talking about, the final 20 minutes of this episode, beat for beat, was a Star Trek episode, and a damn good one at that. Yeah.
Here's the thing, the show, I mean, what do you make of the idea? Like the show wrapped up and then it had like 6 endings.
Yeah. Like in a big way, big way, this is like, okay, so Gathering is the pilot. Maybe Midnight on the Firing Line is the pilot, part 1. This is your part 2, and now we know what's going on. Now we know what questions we're going to go down. You know, like this, I feel more grounded in this world after this episode than I have at any point. And I mean, that's stupid to say because we should feel that every time. But like, I feel like I get it, and things are starting to thread together.
Well, Jeff, so I'm going to toss it to you first. Is this episode of Babylon 5 Star Trek or not? How many deltas would you give it?
Right. So on a scale of 0 to 5, 0 not at all, and 5 very much Star Trek. When I was first taking notes at the end of this episode, I wrote down 5 deltas, but then I looked at my notes and I reflected, and I can't give it 5 deltas. Over half of this episode is terrible. It's just, it's not even good. We're 4 episodes in. I can say the first half of this episode wasn't even good Babylon 5. I'm going to give this one 4 deltas. And I think on top of that, now that I know what this episode ends with, I would absolutely watch this episode again. What about you? How many deltas for you?
This episode to me is actually, I mean, down the line, exactly what you just said. this episode was going to be no deltas whatsoever. And then we hit the 27 mark and the 27-minute mark. And I went, okay, this has some hope. And then it actually dipped back down for me again. Like, when we're going to go off and kill him anyway and blow him out the airlock. And then it came back up and I went, this is a Star Trek episode through and through, even the beginning of it notwithstanding. I'll tell you what I think this episode's going to wind up being, though, Jeff. One of the things I've noticed in doing my show, Beam Me Up, is where I'm taking a person through Star Trek for the very first time and they're watching these episodes for the very first time, just like we are here at Babylon 5. There are some episodes in Star Trek that we as a fandom collectively hold in really high regard. Episodes like City on the Edge of Forever. Episodes like Duet in Deep Space Nine, In the Pale Moonlight, Far Beyond the Stars, these sorts of episodes. There are also episodes that we collectively pan, like These Are the Voyages and several others. And what I've noticed in going through this with a first-time watcher, somebody who doesn't have the group think or the advantage of watching an episode several times, they'll go through, like I very clearly remember my co-host Matt over at Beam Me Up. He watched Duet, which is one of the best episodes of all of Deep Space Nine. Definitely the best episode, I think, of season 1. It's a fan-freaking-tastic episode. Beat for beat, there's not a second that's bad in it. It's an amazing episode. And he comes off his first watch and goes, City on the Edge of Forever, one of the best, if not the best episodes of the original series. I think it's often held as one of the best episodes of Star Trek as a whole. And he goes, yeah. And it really got me thinking, like, I wonder if some of these episodes that we hold in such high regard are only good after multiple rewatches where you see how deep it is, how interconnected it is, and how great it is. And I wonder if this is going to be that kind of a show, Jeff, where for you and I, we watch it for the very first time and we're like, the first 27 minutes. But I wonder if this is one of those episodes that people rewatch and they go, no, guys, you don't understand how deep this show really is. Like, it's so good because they now understand the greater context of everything that we just don't have that reference point for.
And I think there's that piece too that, like, and I've experienced this listening to Beam Me Up, where like Matt might not like Duet when he watches it, but when you finish the Dominion War arc, when you finish these things and look back on it, like, that's the thing I'd be curious, like, to ask, is like, now that you can look back on Duet, what is that? Like, when we finish Babylon 5, are we going to look back at this and be like, oh my, this is where it started, like right here. Yeah. Or the people out there listening could be like, no, that first 27 minutes of hot garbage is there's just no redeeming value, but it does X, Y, and Z, and that's why it's important or something like that. Which, by the way, listeners, don't tweet at us. Please do not.
We'll discover it. We'll discover it along the way. Yeah. Okay, guys.
So how many deltas?
4. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I can't quite give it 5. It's not all the way down the line, but and you're right. He did a little bit of the Picard thing, but he also missed what also could have happened. I really didn't like I'm going to shoot you, but now I'm going to talk to you. And then I'm going to shoot you some more, and now I'm going to talk to you. Like, that wasn't quite this. Like, this would have been no, lay down your weapons, show the sign of first peace, so now we can actually have this conversation. That would have been the Star Trek-y way to do it. But still, the fact they went in, they solved it by talking and appealing to the humanity of the machine. You can, I mean, that's Star Trek. How many times have we seen that in Star Trek? It's 4 deltas just because of that.
Well, that's Infection. I do got to say, like, sometimes it's fun. So we're about to do a cool thing, a fun game that we like to play on this. And it's where we look at the title of the next episode.
I always forget about this.
It's one of my favorite parts of this that we do. But we guess what it is based on the title. And I'll tell you what, when we saw Infection last time, you and I were on the same page. Like, here, oh my God. Oh, we got to suffer through one of these.
And honestly, we were right though, because that first 27 minutes, it was beat for beat, trope for trope of exactly what Infection sounded like it was going to be. I was mad the whole time watching it. I'm like, stupid, it's this episode, and I was right.
And then boom,
I'm glad I was wrong
and really well.
And I'm so glad for it.
So this one's going to be interesting. The next episode, it's called The Parliament of Dreams. Yeah. I'm not thinking George Clinton is in it. So, so what do you, Parliament of Dreams, what do you think that's going to be about?
Parliament of Dreams. Okay. I think it's time for a Kosh episode. This is going to be a Kosh episode. We've had Jakar and Londo. We've had Delenn. with Soul Hunter. We had Jakar and Londo again, and then we had Dr. Franklin. So I'm going to go with Kosh this time. I think it's a Kosh episode because apparently we're not getting Sinclair. And the Parliament of Dreams. Okay, so Kosh is a Medusan,
right?
Right, like he's a bodiless form. It exists in this sort of psychokinetic energy. So we're going to learn what Kosh actually is. You know, is he a light life form? Is he a plasma? Like, what is he? And obviously, I think Kosh does something mentally. Like we know about telepaths and stuff like this. So there's going to be something about how your psyche is governed within the Babylon 5, and like Kosh can, like, maybe he can control people's minds or something like that, or something, how it mixes with the maybe it'll be a telepath episode.
Because there's her too,
and how they go together, something like that. I think that's all I got.
Well, I'm on board with the Kosh thing because I was thinking about it. We've had 2 episodes now in a row, Born to the Purple and this, that haven't barely even mentioned them in Bari, if at all. And the Vorlon have been a passing thing at best. And so my thought, similar, we're gonna get some Kosh. I think we're gonna get some more Delenn, but I think this is gonna be about I don't know, somehow we're gonna see the council, the league, what's it called, the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, the Galactic Senate, basically. I think we're gonna see some more of that. I hope that we get what you talked about. I want to know something about the Vorlon. That's what I'm hoping. But what's cool, Brent, we're gonna find out right here next week. I want to thank you for joining us for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to this. And even if you don't listen on Apple Podcasts, it truly does make a difference when you have those ratings and reviews. It helps us out tremendously. Please head over to Apple Podcasts.
Do you know why? Podcasters used to say all the time, oh, it helps push us up in the ratings and stuff. No, it really doesn't do that. But we have this thing in our society called social proofing. When you want to know if a product on Amazon is good, you go look at the reviews and see what people have said. And it helps us in that way by you sitting there go, I love Babylon 5 for the first time. And when you say that, other people that are looking for Babylon 5 podcasts just sort of come across this sort of show. They go, look at that. Other people have liked it. Let me check it out too. That's how it directly helps. It doesn't do some weird algorithm thing. It just lets other people know that you love the show, and that's really how it helps. And it honestly, it just gives Jeff and I warm fuzzies too, to know that
it totally feels good. And one thing we can offer for that, you go to Apple Podcasts, you leave us a rating review. We'll give you some love off of our Twitter page at Babylon First. Give us a follow. We're going to let the world know that you left us a great review, and we are going to appreciate it more than you can possibly know. So until next time, thank you for joining us on this, our last best hope for peace.
Live long and prosper.
Hey, nope. It's not a Star Trek podcast.
It's my first time.